Good evening, everybody. Good evening, members and members of the public, and welcome to the Planning Committee, October Planning Committee of South Staff's Planning. Thank you. Can I remind the meeting that it is being recorded, and can I ask that the public have respect, listen to all parties, please, and behave in an orderly fashion? It would be appreciated. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn to the people on the top table. So I'm the chairman of the Planning Committee, Councillor Bob Cope. To my right is
Councillor Robert Duncan, Vice Chair.
Amrit Piahotsky, County Highways.
Stuart Evans for Legal Services.
Helen Bembo, Development Management Team Manager.
Mike Brown, Assistant Team Manager for Strategic Projects.
Kelly Harris, Lead Planning Manager for the Council.
Thank you. At the end of the meeting, can you return the book to the top table? Because we haven't signed it yet, so someone could do that for us. Thank you. Okay, I'll proceed with the meeting then. So item 1 is the minutes of the last meeting. Members, do you all approve that they are correct, the minutes of the last meeting?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 2, apologies. I have 3 apologies. That is Councillor Harper Wallace, Councillor Val Chapman, Councillor Robert Reid and Councillor Diane Holmes. Do we have any other apologies, please? Councillor Rita Esseltine, thank you very much. And therefore we proceed to item 4, which is the determination of the planning applications. The order of proceedings are in front of you. So we go to the first application, which is 23/000851/FUL-MEI, and it's land east of the A449, land north of Penkridge. Can I ask Ellen to, oh sorry, it's Michael. Can I ask Michael to outline the application, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Prior to starting this presentation, to provide members with context, this application relates to the same site that was considered by this committee at the meeting on the 2nd of September of this year. At that meeting, it was determined that the outline application, which was subject of a non-determination appeal that commenced this morning, would have been approved subject to various conditions and the signing of the Section 106 agreements. This application is obviously in full, whereas that one was in outline. Here we have the application site, which comprises 2 agricultural fields with a total area of 7.3 hectares, located adjacent to the northern edge of the village of Penkridge. The applications, this is one field, which is to the south of the Stafford Severn Trent Water Pumping Station access. Yeah, you can see back towards the village of Penkridge in the background there. This is at the view from near the same location as the previous photograph, looking along the access to the pumping station, and the River Penk is then down that road. And then finally, we have a view looking north to the edge of the site, detailed by the tree aligned on the top of the hill there. As evident from this location plan, the 2 fields are located either side of the Severn Trent Water Pumping Station access road. To the east of the site runs the River Penk, to the south the so-called Trine land, which has recently been subject to a screening opinion request from Lidl, and to the west the near completed Bloor Phase 1 development. To the north, we have a wooded area and agricultural fields that are subject to a current application from St Phillips. The application before us today comprises two elements. The first is the full submission of details relating to the erection of 135 dwellings. The dwellings, as we can see here, are laid out around a highway created central square from which a number of cul-de-sacs run in terms of the northern portion of the site, that is. The proposal includes 40% affordable homes, which are identified by the blue and red dots on the plan. To the periphery of the site, there are large areas of open space, which includes the northern boundary, a trim trail, and to the southern boundary, part of the Riverside Park. To the northeastern boundary is a play park, whilst active travel routes run throughout the scheme, both alongside the A449 and to the eastern boundary, which will ultimately link through the proposal into both the neighbouring sites and back the other way down towards Penkridge Village. The second element of consideration relates to this parameter plan. Obviously, this is one that we've looked at many times before now. Given this application is EIA development and one of 4 applications that comprises the total ES area. Approving this application, as previously discussed within the 2 previous planning committee meetings, would also approve this parameter plan, which would establish the pattern of development for the wider 69.5 hectare, 1,100 dwelling led development. Also embedded within the ES, and again, as previously discussed, we have looked at previously, is this building height parameters plan. As it relates specifically to this application site, we have development up to 3 stories in height for the northern parcel and, we have to the southern part up to 3 stories in height, and for the northern part 2.5 stories in height. The sole area within the wider master plan where the building height achieves 4 stories is within the community hub. The building height, as shown on this plan, fully comply with the previously agreed building height ES parameter plan, with the orange buildings bungalows, blue 2-storey, red 2.5, and green 3 stories. We have street scene views here of the proposed house type. So the top row that you can see on the plan, that's located adjacent to the southern edge of the site within the northern land parcel, which would face onto the Riverside Park. The second row down shows houses along the site's eastern edge, again within the northern parcel, which would face onto the A449, so effectively the main street view as you pass on that road. The property styles are atypical of the neighbouring Floor Homes development, utilising gable projections to break up the massing of the facades. Whilst a fairly consistent roof height is proposed, there are subtle differences which will be utilised to help break up the roofscape and create visual interest. The third row down shows a view internal to the southern parcel of the site, with the 3-storey apartment building anchoring the southeastern edge of the development. The bottom street scene shows the houses that will overlook the internal pocket park in the northern parcel, which is located central to this portion of the site and will form an entrance feature into this area. Again, these are plans we've looked at previously, but they're here once more for consideration. So we have details of the vehicular access into the southern parcel of land and then heading off to the right there, which will serve the existing Severn Trent Water pumping station route down to their site. The suitability of this access to both this site and the neighbouring sites has previously been deemed to be acceptable, and we are reiterating the details here. You can see the active travel route as it passes along the A449, which is shown in blue, and then bus stops are shown by the blue circles there. Here we have the northern vehicular access point, which is proposed from a 4th arm to the existing roundabout on the A449. And then moving north along the site frontage, more active travel plan routes, which switches to the western side of the A449 in this location. And the vehicular access, which serves the phase 3, which we considered at the end of last month, is shown there. Turning to consideration of the scheme's impact, the material planning considerations arising are lengthy and complex, and I will not seek to reiterate them all here, given they are detailed within the officer's report. But in broad terms, we have, in terms of principle, the council's current housing and land supply position stands at 1.17 years. As per paragraph 11 of the NPPF, the housing policies within the development plan are, as a consequence, no longer considered to be up to date. Therefore, housing policies within the NPPF have primacy, with the so-called tilted balance engaged. In such circumstances, permission must be granted unless areas of particular importance provide a strong reason for refusal. This includes SAT locations as well as impact on ANOBs. As detailed within the officer report, this scheme's impact individually and as part of the wider master plan is considered acceptable in both regards, subject to the signing of the UU specific to mitigating recreational harm to the Cannock Chase SAC. Any impact of improving the proposal would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefit, having regard to the sustainability of the location, making effective use of land, securing well-designed places, and providing affordable homes. Working through these points in turn, the location is considered sustainable given its proximity to Penkridge, with evidence to demonstrate such included within the council's emerging local plan, given the site forms part of a future proposed allocation. In terms of effective use of the land, the density in terms of the built form is compliant once more with the emerging local plan. The ecological, arboricultural, drainage and flood and highway impacts of the development have all been considered to be acceptable. In terms of securing well-designed places, the master plan, design guide and specific architectural details submitted within the application have evolved through work with the applicant and the independent design consultants, HIAS. The master plan is now reflective of what is proposed within the emerging plan and is considered to secure the future delivery of high quality design. Finally, in terms of delivering affordable homes, the scheme will deliver 40% affordable homes along with 10% single story dwellings. Given, therefore, the ability of this scheme to comply with all facets of the tilted balance compliance paragraph, it follows that permission must be granted. As such, the recommendation is one of conditional approval, subject to the signing of section 106 and unilateral undertaking, and the matters detailed within the update list. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. We don't have any speakers speaking for or against this application, but we have got a speaker from the applicant agent, and that's Mark Rose Define. Could you go to the lectern, please? You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this full planning application. The national housing crisis is widely recognised, as are the severe and entrenched socio-economic consequences that have arisen for all sections of society, and successive governments have set out a national policy imperative to significantly boost the supply of new homes across the country. This application seeks to bring forward the delivery of 135 homes in the first phase of the proposed allocation to the north of Penkridge, as identified in your emerging local plan. The proposal to allocate the site is a reflection of its suitability for development. The site is well related to Penkridge, which is a Tier 1 settlement with a wide range of essential day-to-day services. It also lies outside of the green belt that covers most of the district, and the robust and comprehensive suite of submitted site assessments have confirmed that it is free from any insurmountable constraints. Following the initial identification of the proposed allocation in December 2022, Bloor Homes and the Council have worked closely together to ensure the delivery of a high quality development within the allocation site. The result is a well-considered proposal that relies a truly sustainable and well-planned new neighbourhood to the north of Penkridge, supported by the community and highway infrastructure required to meet the day-to-day needs of residences. This site forms the first phase of the allocation site and would deliver 135 new homes across a range of sizes, types and tenures, including 40% affordable housing in line with the adopted policy. That will contribute towards meeting the area's marketing affordable housing needs and addressing the acute 5-year housing land supply shortfall. They are very significant benefits of this application. The development will be accessed via 2 access points. The majority of the houses will be served by a 4th arm to the existing roundabouts on the A449, with the remainder served by a priority T-junction further to the south. The existing access to the Severn Trent water treatment station will be accommodated. The development will also deliver a strategic active travel link along the A449 between the site and the village centre. That will allow residents to benefit from the safe and convenient access to the services within the village centre and will in due course link to the facilities that were delivered in the wider allocation to the north. New bus stops will also be provided in proximity to the site to tie into those works, which will encourage residents to utilise sustainable modes of travel. Staffordshire County Council have considered the access arrangements in detail and have confirmed that they have no objection. The development will provide significant financial contributions towards the delivery of new and improved community infrastructure via roof tax mechanism that will include contributions towards education, health, community sports, highway, pedestrian, cycle and bus services and facilities, and will also support the delivery of new key infrastructure elsewhere within the allocation site as set out in the strategic master plan. The new houses will be set in an attractive green setting with an aspect towards the River Peng. It will deliver usable open space for residents that will include a new play area that is located to benefit from the active travel link between this development and the further development to the north, sitting centrally between the two. This development will also form the first phase of the wider Riverside Park. In doing so, the development will achieve in excess of the 10% biodiversity net gain that's required. In conclusion, the planning application proposals would clearly constitute sustainable development that would result in a number of significant benefits, not least by providing much needed market and affordable housing, support for local community facilities and a substantial area of accessible and attractive public open space, including a new play area. That is recognised in your officer's report. Should you resolve to grant permission, then Bloor Homes are committed to finalising the Section 106 agreement in a timely manner in order to secure the infrastructure as set out in your officer's report to you, and will thereafter implement this permission at the earliest possibility to deliver the much needed development. Therefore, we would encourage members to support the officer's recommendation in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose Define. Members, we don't have the local members with us tonight, so it's over to you. Does anybody want to speak on this application? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I've been to this appeal all day today. I'm in favour of this development, so before we go any further, the only 2 concerns I have is one is as it was mentioned in our previous hearing, was the issue of Severn Trent. Is there going to be a gate put on there to stop any antisocial issues, and the wider active travel route which incorporates on the Cannock Road and a pelican crossing by Woolgarston School, which will cause that road, because majority of the children walk on the west side, not the east side of that road, and to make them cross over a major route, the B5012, to cross over and use that part is really stupid to me. It don't make sense, because most of the children go the opposite way, and you got pelican crossers right on Woolgarston Island that cross the pupils to go into the centre of the village. That's all my comments, Chair.
Michael, are you taking that?
For you, Chair. In terms of the gate, we have a condition relating to details of the access during construction, which will relate to that period of time. In terms of moving forward, There's nothing specific on there at the moment to require them to put one on. I would assume they would quite happily do so if it was becoming an issue for them. I can't, because it's not public highway, I'm not sure whether we, as an authority, could require them to do it as through the planning application. It would be them doing it for themselves, as it were, rather than us imposing it on them. In terms of the crossing, I'm going to put down the table towards Amrit and see if she can provide commentary on that matter.
Thank you. Can I just make an observation first, please? The site access plans, the highway general arrangements, I think they're an earlier version because the setbacks have been removed now to improve visibility. So just wanted to raise that. Regarding the gating of the Severn Trent access, the site plans actually show a gate on the layout plans. So I'm sure that will come forward again. Not sure in terms of the adoption of that. There's conflicting views on whether that should be adopted or not. There's no public utility, so we would look to adopt it, but the transport consultants have said that it'll be put forward for adoption, so I'm sure that'll come forward in time. Regarding the safer routes to schools, there's a whole package of improvements that are being proposed to the primary, middle and high school. That will be delivered under section 106 once the contributions come in. At the moment, the schemes are indicative of what could be provided, but once we get those contributions, we will look in more detail at a whole route improvement scheme. So there's opportunities to comment, and we can provide something that's better fitting for the children that are going to be attending those schools.
You want to come back?
Sure.
Sorry, Alan, over to you.
Just to clarify a point there that, yes, you're correct about plans, but the most up-to-date ones are available on the website and were consulted on, just for the purposes of the presentation. But it's a fair spot, so thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay.
Just on that point, it's a technical issue I'm going to ask here. There's 600 and some odd documents on that application. I've gone through all of them. Some have been superseded. Is there a way we can get rid of some of these superseded documents just to narrow it down so that we, instead of having to find the documents that we really need, to be able to identify the documents that are relevant?
Yeah, it's a really fair point. And when you've got an application like this, the document list builds and builds over, in this case, you know, a couple of years where we've got to this point. It's not good practice to take the old plans off line. In fact, it's encouraged that we keep them on so that the chronology is clear. The best mechanism is to use the sort. There's a filter on there that you can sort out the superseded and just look at the updated, or you can sort by date. So I completely take your point that it would be better if we could maybe put them into folders or something like that, but the system doesn't allow us to do it. But it's very much good practice and encouraged for us to keep them on to demonstrate that chronology, and it also helps the public to look back and compare the plans. But yeah, wholly take that point on board in the file of this scale.
Thank you, Chair, for you. It's all right, because to find these last bit of plans took me 20 hours to find it, and I thought, that's new. I did.
Okay. Any more speakers? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate what I've said previously, the parish council has worked well, the developers work well with the parish council and the council, so they have made various changes that we've requested over the last couple of years, so we're quite happy with the plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers? No, I can't see any more speakers indicating. Therefore, members, before you is the recommendation to approve. All those in favour, can you please show? That's unanimous. Thank you, members. Right, before I proceed to the next on the schedule, we did have a second item, which was an item that originally was coming before the planning committee for Lower Pen. and it was Robin's Nest Farm, Dirty Lane, Lower Pen. Now, it's no longer being considered by the committee. I think it was withdrawn by Councillor Wilson, the original objection, and it will be delegated to officers. So I just needed to make that plainly to you. Thank you. So therefore we go to the next one on the schedule, which is item 25/00296/OUTM, and this is at Ockenhill Farm, Kiddymore Green, Brood. Which officer's tackling that? Ellen? Over to you, Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application site extends to 6.25 hectares and is situated south of Kiddymore Green Road in Brood, adjacent to the western edge of the village. The land extends around the existing Hocker Hill Adventure Play Barn and farmhouse and comprises of agricultural fields which sit at a higher level than the highway, with a thick band of trees fronting the main road. Just show this plan for a little bit of context. So the red line plan is shown there. This is the band of trees here. This is where the play barn is located. So that is almost, if you imagine that's cookie cut out of the site. Likewise here, which is where the farmhouse is located. This is the existing site access. Outline permission is sought for up to 100 dwellings, together with open space, landscaping and associated infrastructure. This outline application seeks permission only for the principle of development and the access arrangement. Appearance, landscape, layout and scale would be dealt with as part of a further future reserved matters application, should this application be approved. The indicative plan shows the development of up to 2 stories east and west of Hocker Hill Play Barn and an area of single-storey development on the western side closest to the village edge. The indicative plan also shows a centrally located area of public open space with equipped play area and a landscape buffer to include woodland planting around the perimeter of the site. The site is within the green belt. However, it is considered to meet the definition of grey belt, complying with the provisions set out in the NPPF. The proposal for residential development is therefore, in this case, an acceptable form of development in the green belt. In addition, the proposal would meet the golden rules set out within the NPPF, a factor which should be given significant weight in the determination of this application. As the Council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, the tilted balance in favour of sustainable development is engaged, unless any adverse impact of granting permission would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the policies in the NPPF taken as a whole. While the site would be outside of the defined village boundary, it is within walking distance and a sustainable location, various services and facilities nearby to the site. It is also clear that the proposal would result in the loss of some good to moderate quality agricultural land, and there would be some harm to landscape character. However, this represents a very small portion of the district's agricultural land, and the landscape impact would be localised to Kiddymore Green Road, would reduce over time with landscape mitigation. With regards to heritage, any harm arising from the proposed scheme has been fully considered and mitigation proposed, primarily in the form of single-storey development closest to the village. Careful consideration of design would also need to be given at the time of a reserved matters application. Given that the proposal would contribute up to 100 homes to the Council's housing land supply, comprising of 50% affordable housing, it is considered that the benefits of the development significantly outweigh any harm when assessed against the provisions of the NPPF as a whole. Furthermore, there's no undue concerns arising with regard to highway safety, residential amenity, arboriculture, ecology and biodiversity, archaeology, or the Cannock Chase Special Area of Conservation. It's therefore considered that the proposal complies with the provisions of the NPPF and the relevant policies of the core strategy, and as such approval is recommended subject to conditions and satisfactory completion of a Section 106 agreement. I will just flick through some photos of the site, but can I just draw members' attention to the update list, which has some updated conditions associated with the development, and notes one lake representation, which doesn't cover any new material matters already considered in the report. The photos in front of you here show the view of the existing site entrance from Kiddemore Green Road, and then a view in the opposite direction looking down Kiddemore Green Road, where the second access would be created. This is looking east from the existing driveway of the farmhouse, and on the right hand side that is the existing farmhouse. So that's part of the areas that is cut out of the site location plan. This is the paddock to the rear of the site, and then this is looking from the rear of the site across the eastern parcel, again from Kiddemore Green Road. And these are a couple of views from within the adventure play barn, across the car park and the building itself. The western part of the site, shown in 2 slides there, and southwest, and then looking beyond the adventure play barn. And just to finish is the indicative site layout that's being proposed. Again, you can see this is where the play barn is located. This is the farmhouse where the driveway pictures were taken. And the indicative layout shows a further access, which is to be considered this evening, and then an internal layout for development here, along this strip here, and then into this eastern parcel of the site. Application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. We have one speaker tonight speaking against, which is Jeremy Quince. Could you go to the lectern, please? You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm here today as a local resident who fully supports thoughtful, plan-led growth, but the outline application for 100 houses at Hocker Hill Farm is neither thoughtful nor plan-led. I want to set out clearly and respectfully why, in planning terms, approving it will conflict with both national and local policy, and why refusing it will be the right and responsible decision. The site lies entirely within the Greenbelt. The National Planning Policy Framework gives the Greenbelt the highest level of protection, clearly stating inappropriate development is, by definition, harmful to the Greenbelt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. There are no such circumstances here that justify building 100 houses on this open countryside. The South Staffordshire core strategy mirrors that principle and restricts Greenbelt development to very limited exceptions set out in the national policy. This proposal meets none. It is not limited infill, not redevelopment, and not a rural affordable housing scheme. It's a major inappropriate development, and harm to openness must carry substantial weight. The applicant and officer's report seek to justify this by calling the site grey belt. This is a term for green belt that land that might, in theory, be suitable if it meets strict conditions. Hocker Hill Farm does not meet these rules. It is open, productive farmland that performs key greenbelt functions by preventing westward sprawl, maintaining separation from nearby villages, and preserving the rural setting of Brood's historic core and conservation area. Furthermore, the proposal does not deliver wider community benefits in line with the Golden Rules. For example, local and national infrastructure improvements or the provision of new and improved publicly accessible green spaces. Calling it grey belt does not withstand scrutiny and would set a dangerous precedent, inviting other developers to use the same argument to chip away at protected land across South Staffordshire. Although the council cannot currently demonstrate a full 5-year housing land supply, the NPPF is clear. This does not override greenbelt protection. Housing shortfall alone is not a very special circumstance. Housing need should be met through the proper plan-led process, not speculative applications on protected land. Brood's historic, compact form and conservation area setting are central to its identity. Extending the village into open farmland would urbanise the rural approach, permanently eroding its character. Once that boundary is breached, it invites further encroachment, directly conflicting with Core Policy 1, which seeks to maintain sustainable, well-contained settlements and avoid sprawl and fragmentation. The site lies well beyond the settlement boundary and will be heavily car dependent. The proposal does not provide any credible, alternative, sustainable transport options. There's no active bus service on Kiddymore Green Road, and the nearest bus stop is just under 1 kilometre away. Additional traffic will funnel through the narrow village streets, already reduced to single lanes by parked cars, where vehicles regularly mount pavements as children walk to school. There's no new credible transport evidence has been provided, and the minor proposed works are irrelevant to these core issues. It's been evident that the local schools are at capacity and GP services are under pressure, and no mitigation has been included in the proposal. The applicant's own biodiversity net gain assessment admits results could change significantly as plans evolve. Granting outline permission now will be premature and contrary to the environmental safeguards. This land is not allocated in the adopted or emerging local plan. Approving it would undermine both the district's plan-led approach and the neighbourhood plan being developed for the parish, which aims to give residents a genuine democratic say in where and how growth happens. Growth should be planned, sustainable and community-led, not speculative or developer-driven. In conclusion, this proposal is inappropriate development that does not provide sufficient very special circumstances. It causes irreversible harm to openness, character and landscape. It creates serious road safety issues and infrastructure pressures with no credible solutions. It offers no meaningful benefits that outweigh the harm. Approving this will not only damage the countryside and Blue's historic character, but also further undermine public confidence in the planning process. The Greenbelt exists to stop exactly this kind of speculative sprawl. Please stand by your policies, protect the openness and identity of Brood and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quince, and thanks for sticking to the 5 minutes. We don't have a speaker speaking for the application, but we do have the agent who is speaking, and it's Megan Wilson. Can you go to the lectern, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. As introduced, my name is Megan Wilson and I am the planning agent acting on behalf of Bonnegale Developments in regard to the proposed development Hocker Hill Farm. Firstly, I would like to thank the officers for all of their tireless work in bringing this application to today's committee. It's been a pleasure to work with Jennifer Mincher throughout the process. We sit here today to consider a site that officers have recommended for approval. A scheme which will help the council to meet their obligation and local housing need that are set by the government. At present, the council do not have a 5-year housing land supply, and a development of up to 100 dwellings will make an important contribution to meeting South Staffordshire's minimum housing requirements and significant shortfall. The proposed development of up to 100 dwellings will include 50 affordable homes and 10 single-storey bungalows. It will deliver a mix of housing to support younger households, families and older residents to enjoy and live and maintain the viability of the very popular village of Brood. Brood, as we've heard today, is a sustainable location, as is recognised in both the adopted and emerging local plan. It has a range of day-to-day services and facilities, including numerous schools, numerous retail opportunities and various options for social recreation. As is confirmed within the officers' report and with the within the policy team's assessment of the site comprises grey belt land as defined within national planning policy, and therefore the proposal before you is not considered inappropriate development in this regard. The development will retain the allotments to the northwest of the site and will deliver public open spaces, play areas, landscaping, and will include a buffer that will ensure the scheme integrates within the wider landscape setting. Significant biodiversity net gain will be delivered. In respect of sustainable transport, the scheme links to and enhances footpaths, cycleways and bus routes. A financial contribution to support improved bus services to benefit new and existing residents has been agreed with the council and will support the reintroduction of a regular bus service running along Kiddymore Green Road. Boningale Developments is a family-run company with local roots that is accountable and invests in the community. They are currently developing out high-quality scheme at Albrighton in neighbouring Shropshire and are committed to ensuring that South Staffordshire is maintained and enhanced through their commitment to housing delivery. Granting planning permission at Hocker Hill Farm will bring about a local investment of £22.4 million and will support 445 jobs during construction and beyond. The delivery of new family housing in a settlement with an increasingly ageing population will ensure that the long-term viability of the services and facilities is enhanced and maintained. As is detailed within the officer's report, all statutory consultees have raised no objection to the site. There is no outstanding concerns in regard to the capacity of local services or facilities to accommodate the development. And the council have, during the course of the application, considered all of the following matters and are comfortable with, amongst other things, highways and traffic, flood risk and drainage, landscape and character, and neighbourhood amenity. In conclusion, the proposed development delivers social, environmental and economic benefits. It has officer support and meets national and local planning policy. I therefore invite members to support this high quality extension to Brood that meets established housing need and policy requirements whilst protecting the village character. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Wilson. Members, it's over to yourselves to speak, but we always go to the local member first. Councillor Sutton, do you wish to speak?
Chair, at this moment in time, I wish to reserve my right to speak.
Okay. Any other speakers then, members? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I seem to be the bad penny at this, but still. Just to clarify, Ellen, please. It is in the green belt, and because of our land supply, it is permitted development. Wouldn't EQ1 protecting and extending, enhancing natural assets be more prevalent to that, and protecting the green belt? How have you come to your rationale on outweighing the pros and cons?
Ellen.
Yeah, thank you through you, Chair. So the report comprehensively goes through the details, so I will paraphrase in the spirit of time saving, but it is Greenbelt. So you are correct, it's outside of the village boundary, but we've done an assessment on the development site and determined that it's grey belt. So obviously that's a provision that we can now look at under the terms of the new NPPF as of last year. Because it's considered to be grey belt, it doesn't need to make a very special circumstances case. It's appropriate development in the green belt, but there are conditions that sit alongside that and they all have to be met. And you will see from the chronology in the report, they're quite strict, and this is where the 50% affordable homes comes from, amongst other things. So that's the nuance I think you were trying to get at. It's grey belt, so therefore it's not inappropriate, and therefore we don't need a very special circumstances case. The policy you refer to obviously has been weighed in the planning balance, and I would say there's two elements to that that are key and contribute here. We're clearly going to have a change. We've got a greenfield, a green agricultural site, and we're looking to add redevelopment to it. But in terms of landscape enhancements, there's a lot going on here. We've maintained the tree buffer at the highway, and you can look from the indicative layout, albeit this is indicative, we would have an opportunity to work with this at reserve matter stage to enhance it should we feel the need to. But there's a lot of landscaping already proposed here. A landscape visual impact assessment has been done, which obviously recognises the harm, but not to the point where it would outweigh the benefits. And we can't get away from the fact that it's a biodiversity net gain uplift that's quite significant here. So that's where the policy that you mentioned is weighed into the balance, and there's benefits from both of those things, albeit there is still harm, but not to the point that would outweigh significantly those benefits. So hopefully that helps. Thank you, Chair.
Come back.
Thank you, Chair, for you. That's brilliant. You've clarified. Just to give a quick for every other budget and as well as the members of the public grey belt element. And on the issue of bus service, we've heard from both parties that there's going to be a contribution in that. Just give a bit more in depth on the bus service, how it will, because as I say, the regulation states 300 metres is from the development. Somebody has to walk to the nearest bus service.
Yeah, again through you, Chair. So yeah, there's several elements of developer contributions that would be brought forward should members be minded to approve the scheme, along with the 50% affordable homes. We've got the mitigation for Cannock Chase SAC. We've got public open space provision, highways improvements and public transport contributions, and a travel plan. So the developer has signed up to that provision. That's something that would be worked through the legal agreement. But the bus stop location and the timings of the bus that is currently there, the frequency, would all be subject to change if we were minded to approve this application. So there's an honour to make that contribution, and that's something that Highways colleagues have sought that is necessary. So yeah, very much one of the heads of terms that would be secured should members be minded to approve. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There certainly seems to be a bit of controversy here saying whether this area is green belt or grey belt. Now, we've all had lectures, if you like, or discussions, and it would have been, it's been emphasised tonight, I think. This is, from a development point of view, grey belt, grey land. So it can be developed as indicated. But I'd like to ask a question, if I may, that, and I apologise to the members, the officers, but there's 100 dwellings proposed for this site. Now, I worked that out. 100 dwellings would probably result in what, 250 people dwellings? What would 250 people living in Brood additionally, what percentage increase would that be to the population of Brood as it is at the moment? Because that's where some significance, I think, may well arise. The other point is a quick one on the same subject in a way. I have noted that the previous application was refused. And the only difference between that one and this one is that an 80-bed care home was included and consequently it was refused. What is the real difference between the two? The 80 and 100, just simply because the 80-bed one has been omitted. Could we have an explanation?
Of course, Councillor Ashley, not a problem. I'm going to pick up the query about the refusal, then I'm going to hand over to Kelly about the population query, if that's okay. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's outlined in the report there was a previous refusal on the site, and you are also correct that the only difference in terms of the proposals in front of us this evening are the removal of the 80-bed care home. That was quite a fundamental change because that raised quite a few concerns at officer level with regards to heritage impact and bulk and mass of the potential care home. So it was important that that was removed from the perspective of harm. The big change, however, was the policy situation in terms of when that previous decision was made. It was made prior to the changes to the NPPF, so we hadn't got grey belt. It wasn't a thing. And we also had a 5-year land supply, well, 4-year land supply, which we needed at the time. So the policy context to national level was a completely different landscape. So a lot of the issues, matters and concerns with the refusal, the previous one, were technical matters. They've all now been addressed. The in principle matters that we refused it on back in 2024 are now not relevant because the policy context has changed. So I hope that's gone some way to clarify that. But I'm going to hand over to Kelly to answer your question about the population. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, through you, Chair. In terms of population growth, I don't have the numbers before me, but what I wanted to kind of explain to you was around the assumptions on household formation and population change, because it's not as straightforward to say that 100 homes will equal 240 more people in the village. If you look at our own evidence base on our strategic housing market assessment needs, and that's what underpins the local plan, we have a lot of hidden households in South Staffordshire, e.g. children living at home with their parents until a lot older, be trying to get onto the property market. That's a hidden household that could then benefit by moving into a new property. So those people may already be in the village, just living with parents, grandparents. That is a big issue for us in South Staffordshire. Equally, I would also say that we, again, from the strategic housing market assessment, we know in some of our villages, and Brood is one of them, where we have a large number of large bedroom properties that elderly people are, say, living in because they haven't got an appropriate bungalow to downsize into. And we know from our evidence that if you build a bungalow, it has 3 times the effect on the housing market by moving people into the right size property in the right location. So it isn't as straightforward, unfortunately, as to say that 100 homes would result in 240 more people in the village. But what I would say, what is important is our housing requirement set by government. We have been set a target of 651 new homes to be delivered, and that does bake in population change and population growth. And ultimately, that's what members need to consider, is that requirement that government has set us, that we need to deliver 651 homes every year. The local plan is coming forward, but we need a new local plan at pace in order to get to that level of housing delivery that we know that we need to deliver. Thank you.
Has that answered your question? You don't want to come back? Okay. Any more speakers? No? So it's Councillor Steele. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. There seems to be a disagreement with whether the bus service is serving this proposed site or whether there is not a bus service. Because there's discussions about improving the bus service. Well, if it's not running, I don't see how it can be improved. So I'm sure you'll show me where I'm wrong. But at 4.04, in terms of public transport, there's no return stop opposite the bus shelter on Kiddamore Green Road. So on the return journey, they use a hail and ride procedure, which means that the bus stops informally at the nearest safe location. Well, if it's not running, it doesn't, surely. So that's the first point. The County Highways Officer has recommended that a new bus stop is provided, excuse me for smiling, is provided near the western access, as shown within the transport assessment. But if there's no bus service, what is the point of that statement, for one? 405, the County Highways Officer also advised that the bus service which used to route on Kiddamore Green Road, well, there's proof, number 877 has been stopped due to lack of demand. And the bus service mentioned in the transport assessment, 878, is a school bus only. Now, I could carry on, so can we look into this? But accepting that the site is in grey belt is one thing, and I know that changes the whole thing, and it actually gives the developer the upper hand. But the NPPF also states that a site still has to be sustainable, and I assume that means, and I think it says about there should be more than one means of getting to and from a site. In other words, so that you don't rely on the private car. Well, if there's no bus service running at the moment, now I know it says that there's discussions about an S10, including in the S106 agreement, but there's no money mentioned, and because obviously supplying a new bus service for perhaps a year or two costs an absolute fortune. The only mentions of money I can find are the developer would be required to enter to a Section 106 agreement to secure an acceptable travel plan and the travel plan monitoring fee of £6,000. And then an additional school travel sum is also required as an education contribution of 5,000. So can you just explain to me why is there going to be a funded bus service? And actually, if the bus service is going towards Bishop's Wood, how far is it going? Because if it doesn't go to Stafford, what is the point of it? Because you can't get anywhere from Bishop's Wood if you're commuting. Okay, if it goes the other way towards Brood Centre and then on to Wolverhampton, that's okay, but it's no good if your job's in Stafford. So there could well be an extra 200 vehicle movements every morning, every evening for people to get to their place of employment. So can you just demonstrate to me how this site can be sustainable, you know, in transport means?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, through you. Yeah, you're absolutely right about the grey belt principle. To be grey belt, one of the matters that has to be considered is for it to be sustainable. So that kind of assessment forms part of that judgment that's made. So you're absolutely correct. There's no figure in terms of the bus stop final financial contribution. The principle of the amount has been agreed and that will be worked through because the scheme for what will need to be delivered will have to be worked through in more detail. But the developers agreed to that. So there is an existing bus. It's the frequency of the bus stop and it's the fact that it's a Hale bus stop rather than a fixed bus stop. But in terms of the full detail, that will be worked through the Section 106 agreement. So what the financial contribution will be, and also where the nearest bus stops will be. But there is an intention to increase the number of bus stops here. But because Brood is considered to be a main service village, and what we're doing here is bolting on almost to the main service village, and it's a main service village in the existing plan and in the emerging plan. In terms of sustainability, it's one of the more sustainable locations. Early discussions about the bus route have been considered and it will go towards Bishop's Wood and then to Codsall Bilbrook, so it links to the train station. So that's the route that's proposed for the bus and that's where the link in sustainability comes in. I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that, Kelly.
If I can just add, looking at the different bus services that operate through there, there is a different bus, the 876 that's mentioned that goes to Penkridge and onto Stafford. So there's both options there. I've just had a look at the draft Section 106 and and it is obviously draft at this stage, but there is a figure in that for the contribution towards the public transport of £150,000.
You want to come back?
Just on one point. The bus has been discontinued at the moment through lack of use or lack of customers. So is this site really going to bring up enough people to have a sustainable bus route? It's certainly not in its for while it's being built. So I don't know. We obviously got a different definition of sustainment.
Yeah, it's just to reinforce the point really, obviously that there is an existing bus service, it will be made better by way of contribution. And the providing a better and increased bus service is also not about just serving the existing people. It's convincing people who don't currently use the bus. That's the modal shift we try and make. So if you provide a better service that's more frequent and runs later into the evening, for example, or maybe we can run a Sunday service, you may shift people out of the car, and that's what we try and achieve with the modal shift. So it's twofold: the increase in people that we'll get as a result of the new population, but also encouragement for some of existing residents to use it as well. And sorry, can I just hand to Kelly, Chair?
Can I just come in as well about the general term of sustainability? So paragraph 155 of the NPPF is what we're looking at this evening in terms of making a decision. And what it says there is that it's not inappropriate development if, one, it's grey belt, which is what the officer's position is, that it meets that. If it is in a sustainable location, if there's a demonstrable and met need for that type of development and the golden rules are met. So those are the four things that we're looking at this evening. It is the council's position, both in the emerging and the adopted local plan, that Brood is a sustainable settlement. Sustainable doesn't mean just access to a bus. It means access to a range of services and facilities, schools, education, shops, retail. And whilst I appreciate the Brood isn't one of our highest order sustainable settlements with a train station, it is still relatively in that round a sustainable location. So we can't define sustainability purely on access to a bus stop. There's a much bigger social, environmental and economic strand that needs to go into the round for it to be determined that it is a sustainable village, which is what the emerging and the adopted plan says for Brood.
I knew you'd have an answer. Thank you, Kelly.
Moving on then. Any more speakers? No. It's over to you then, Councillor Sutton. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened to the debate with interest. From the point of view of a local resident of Brood for the last 30 years and also as a elected representative for the last 12, I've had an awful lot of conversations regarding this proposed development, and a lot of the debate has hinged around the commentaries I've had from local residents. In all honesty, this position of this particular proposed development extends the village boundary to almost to the point where actual active travel is a difficulty for some people who would be living on here. I'm thinking of people who may be living in low-level housing who might have a little bit more difficulty with mobility. I don't think I can support this application in all honesty because of what I've heard said tonight. Yes, I appreciate that there has been a change in policy, and I appreciate the difficulty the council finds itself in relation to green belt versus grey belt. I really still have to be evidenced that locally our housing needs assessment requires an extra 100 houses, 50 of which would be affordable homes. I can take you to places within the parish of Brood and Coven and Bishopswood where there is still empty social housing. So to suggest to us that we're going to sacrifice good quality growing land and also the green belt stroke grey belt and have that argument when we still haven't had any indication from the planning inspectorate around other planning applications in the area, makes it difficult for me to feel comfortable to vote in favour of this approval of this plan. I'm afraid I'm going to have to vote against this application.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Does anybody want to respond at all? No? Thank you for that observation. Do we have any more speakers? No? Speak. Right, so the procedure is I haven't actually had a proposal for refusal without a planning reason. So the recommendation, members, is for approval. All those in favour of approval, can you please show?
Eight, nine.
Okay. All those against?
2, 3.
Okay. Any abstentions? No? So that application is approved. Thank you, members. I'll wait a few minutes while some of the members of the public will leave the room. Thank you. Okay, members, we proceed with the agenda. So we're on this item now, which is the next planning application, which is 25/000519/FUL, and it's land off Chatwell Lane, Great Chatwell. And which officer, Ellen? Over to you, Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the site of a temporary construction compound located off the north side of Chatwell Lane in the rural settlement of Great Chatwell within the open countryside that has been in place since February of this year. Just going to show members a plan. For those who were able, we did actually carry out a site visit to this application site it was yesterday, where we were able to see the compound. It is retrospective in the vast majority, so it was useful for those members who could attend, and we were grateful to have the ward members there to assist with that. The site is currently used by Severn Trent Water, the applicant, to serve mandatory improvement works which are taking place at the Blimall Sewage Treatment Works located approximately 800 metres to the southeast of Brockton Lane. So the main sewage works is actually off this plan, around about here, if you can see my cursor. The proposal is retrospective and seeks to retain a temporary construction compound for the duration of the construction period. The proposed working hours are Monday to Friday, 7:30 AM to 6 PM, and no works are to take place on Saturday, Sunday or bank holidays. On completion of the works, the temporary compound will be removed and the site will be reinstated to its previous state. The ground will be made good, like for like, and returned back to agricultural use. It's considered that the use of the field as a temporary construction compound would not cause any detrimental effect on the appearance and character of the open countryside, given it is a temporary period of 17 months. The highest buildings and structures on the site do not exceed 2.5 metres, and as it would be reinstated to its previous state. As such, there is no sustained conflict with policy OC1 of the core strategy. Whilst it is acknowledged that during the construction of the compound, residents experienced issues of noise and dust, these matters are considered to have now been addressed through proposing of planning conditions and input from the environmental health team. Given the temporary period of the proposed working hours specified, the proposed use would cause no adverse harm on neighbouring amenity, and the proposal also raises no ecological, arboricultural or highway-related concerns. This application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions. So just to go back to the slides, so the red line plan here you can see is the compound area. This is the access from the highway. I just wanted to point out this is the nearest residential property here. Hope you can see that. And that's it from closest point of Kirtledge to Kirtledge is 20 metres. So these are some photos of the compound. As I've stated, it is retrospective, so you can see that the hardcore has been laid down there. The porter cabins here are for welfare for the workers who are utilising the repair works and upgrade works at the neighbouring sewage works itself. This area here is the storage area. So this photo on the left hand side is looking down towards the nearest residential property, which you can just about see in the distance. The trees are in leaf here. And on the right hand side there is the highway. And this area here is where the porter cabins are located. And this is the area as you pull into the site from the highway to the left hand side, which has been created as an informal parking area for use of the people accessing the compound. And finally, just to be clear, this is the site layout that is proposed for approval this evening. So you access the site from the vehicle highway. This is the car parking area here. And here the porter cabins are shown in blue. And the area closest to the residential property here is for informal storage. And the site was laid out as such when we made the visit yesterday. And any noise generated was from a bank of generators which were located centrally within the site. Really important that members are mindful of the conditions that are proposed. As it's retrospective, it's not been operating under any restrictions, but should members be minded to approve it this evening, there are restrictions on opening hours and lighting and some improvement works to the access to be completed within 1 month. Recommendation is to approve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. We have one speaker speaking against, which is Mr. Dave Haywood. Could you go to the lectern, please? You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
In February this year, an isolated salad field opposite Brook Cottage was turned into an industrial construction compound. No advance notice and no democratic right to consultation. Almost a mile from the sewage works site, and you may read that there was no alternatives, but that's not completely true. Negotiations with Bradford Estates continued for almost a year until October, when STW pulled out due to relocation costs. 33 weeks after startup, you were debating on another 100 weeks of misery. Here's why it's in the wrong place. The size of the compound has increased from 2,400 square metres to an estimated 5,000 square metres using Google Maps to trace the perimeter fence, almost a football pitch. The local amenity is a residential property who didn't choose to have the development on their doorstep, nor did they have the ability to consult on plans. Nevertheless, 18 metres from the boundary means persistent noise level throughout the day from lorries, diggers and caterpillar chains. The lanes and fields are dark during winter, yet the planning officer states STW will not use floodlights. Surely this puts health and safety risk in place for poor lighting, and vehicles will certainly have headlights. The lanes and fields are dark during winter, yet the application states that the compound is not visible from the road, yet every porter cabin can be seen along Chapwell Lane. Any slight camouflage will be lost, will lose its leaves as they fall for over 40% of the planned works. So let's review the MPPF in context of the objection. Many mitigations are provided based on the word temporary, but the application is nearly 2 years and a breach is a breach. Please consider these. Paragraph 174, does the development conserve the intrinsic character, landscape and beauty of the countryside? 187, are the compound owners doing enough to protect public health and quality of life for residents by not relocating? Paragraph 185, may not be breached, but only if you believe the compound will operate through the winter with no vehicle lighting and flood lighting. Paragraph 84, does the 1.2 kilometre journey from compound to worksite minimise the need to travel on rural isolated dark single track lanes with 108 HGV vehicle moving each week? 183, can you be 100% confident the exported soil heaps won't leave the land contaminated, as no plan remediation testing has been mentioned? And finally, paragraph 8, with its 3 overarching objectives for sustainability. Do you feel this is a sustainable development considering the detriments to traffic, travel, neighbours and countryside? If you have any doubts about the application integrity, given the long period of unauthorised land use, the late planning application submission and the potential framework breaches highlighted above, then please vote to reject this application and force relocation to a land adjacent to the sewage works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayward. We don't have a speaker speaking for, but we do have the agent. So can Lewis Banks Hughes please go to the lectern? Thank you. You also have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thanks to the members who were able to visit the site yesterday and Mr. Hayward for his comments. My name is Lewis Banks Hughes. I'm a town planner at 7 Trent Water. Speaking today, obviously, as the applicant in support of the application. So this retrospective planning application relates solely to the provision of a temporary compound, which you've seen on the screen there, that remain in place until 31st of March 2027. And it's been in place since February 2025. It's required to facilitate the upgrade works at Blimwell Sewage Treatment Works, which, as we've heard, is located nearby, approximately a kilometre away. The upgrade works there are currently in progress, and they'll allow the sewage treatment works to accommodate growth which has occurred in the catchment and improve the treated water discharge from the site. That planning application was considered by Staffordshire County Council as they're the waste authority rather than the district council. So these types of applications are considered by them. So ordinarily we would locate our compounds on land adjacent to the works, but in this case we're unable to reach timely agreement with the adjacent landowner, and instead we're required to relocate or locate the compound rather on the nearest available land, which is shown on the screen. We usually rely on permitted development rights to install compounds, but in this case, due to the distance between the compound and the sewage works, we are asked to submit a retrospective planning application And I hope that explains why we have submitted it, I suppose, retrospectively rather than applying for planning permission in advance. So I accept that Severn Trent could have done better at communicating and showing our proposals to residents. I'd like to assure members that lessons have been learnt on this project, and we do consult councils with the majority of our schemes as part of the course. One matter I just wanted to touch on was the introduction of a one-way system. This is not taking place as originally proposed, and we are continuing to work with Staffordshire County Council to reduce the duration to approximately 3 weeks over the next 18 months. Except that the construction works will cause some level of disruption. We've attempted to mitigate those, and obviously we've had the planning conditions, including those on working hours and lighting, which we will comply with. In relation to lighting, although no external lighting is proposed, I mean, clearly it's dark, it's autumn, winter, we will be submitting a lighting scheme to the council for them to consider. Obviously, that will only operate during those approved working hours, should the application be approved. So in conclusion, I'd like to reassure members that following completion of the upgrade works, temporary compound will be removed and we will reinstate the site to its previous state and agricultural use. So I'd like to request that members grant planning permission for this application in line with the officer's recommendation for approval. I'd like to thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Bankshares. Right, members, we've got a ward member that wants to speak first on this application, which is Councillor Sutton. Over to you, Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. I called this application in to be heard before you for a variety of reasons. I'm quite torn by this application because as a representative of South Staffordshire District Council for the last 12 years, we have, as all members representing wards, suffered quite severe issues in relation to the 3 provisions of water or removal thereof. The first obviously being fresh water and the provision thereof, which some villages, including Councillor Steele's some years ago, ended up not getting water from our one and only supplier, Severn Trent. The second was the removal of grey water, which people in Penkridge have actually had grey water coming back through their sewages in the roads. And the third is actually the removal of surface water. So after flooding and having our residents flooded out. So it was with great joy I saw that Severn Trent are finally going to do the work and update our antiquated water systems to put us in line with some of our more urban areas. But the reality is that the residents who've lived in this area near to this compound have since not had any consultation process, have not had any notification. They simply came home from work one day to discover that Severn Trent had rocked up, took over a field, put a load of heavy plant and put 2 stories, and what you see today is a very pretty version of what happened in February of this year when it looked like a major roadworks had started. And that's what I was informed at an emergency residents meeting in March of this year. They thought a new brand spanking new motorway was being built through Blimmel because this amount of heavy ordnance that was on this compound. When it was realised that in actual fact it was to provide for a sewage works over a mile away and that nobody from the site would actually engage and have a conversation about it, it then became the point that we had to get enforcement involved, and hence the reason you have now got a retrospective planning application. I'm hoping that the planning application, if it is approved this evening, they will adhere to the conditions that the planning officers have placed upon them. Because other than the planning conditions at this moment in time, this site has been running a little bit rogue, shall we say, and it has caused innumerable problems for residents in and around the area. And the agent just alluded to the one-way system, which actually was invoked on the 1st of August, supposedly, which was 18 months as a 7.5 mile diversion for residents. We managed to get that rescinded with a lot of conversations with the county council. But there has been no consultation processes, and Lewis, the agent, has said he's taken away a learning curve. The reason I'm talking like this is the fact that every single one of you as ward members will have similar issues in the future with Severn Trent unless they start to take up the consultation mantle. And I've already got another issue in my area where they intend to close a main road from Brood through to Bishopswood, the Kiddamore Green Road, which might impact on the previous application for a total period of 20 weeks minimum. And we've had no consultation, and apparently that's going to start in February. So I really do suggest that ward members have a look closely at this application and any of the applications for the future that Severn Trent should actually provide. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just one concern, and Helen can answer this question. The agent has already intimated that they're going to be putting in further applications for lighting and stuff like that. Has that already come in, or is that new to this day? Because if that needs to be done, then really there's a concern there that further things are coming to light that we aren't even aware of.
Yeah, I think it's just worth clarifying a few points that have been raised by Councillor Sutton as well, and it was acknowledged in my kind of opening speech really. There was very much a firm belief by Severn Trent Water that this compound was permitted development, and very, very often that is the case. It's proximity in this case that means it's not. If it was closer to the actual sewage works itself, this could go on unrestricted without any planning consent. There's been an acknowledgement on Severn Trent's part that they didn't engage appropriately with residents, and that was acknowledged on the site visit, and that there was a broad assumption that it was permitted development when there should have been further works done. I think that aside, we've got to look at what we've got in front of us here today. Condition 10 states that there shall be no lighting. So what you as members are looking at this evening is a scheme with no lighting. If lighting appears without any consent, it's a clear enforcement breach, and we'll be able to deal with that. And if lighting is determined to be required on the site over the winter period, it needs a planning application, needs to be assessed, and we would assess it for residential amenity and ecological harm. So no, you are not assessing that this evening. If that is determined to be required by Severn Trent Water, we would assess that on its merits. But that's not what you were assessing this evening, if that makes it a little bit clearer. Thank you, Chair.
Just come back.
Come back.
Thank you. Temporary. I know they've put a time limit on until 2027, but they've already had 2 years. How much longer have the Severn Trent liaise with you saying what sort of works they are doing and how much, further or behind they are?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. To be clear, it's been in place since February of this year. So it's not been in place for 2 years already. The total turns out to be about 2 years from when it was originally put in place to the end. Having spoke to them only yesterday, they're very much on track with the programme. So the March 2027 date is the end date, and that does incorporate obviously decommissioning, putting everything back as well. So very much at the moment, the view is that it's going to be within those timeframes. And to point out subject to the restrictive conditions in terms of operating hours. It is worth flagging one other point that I had an update from the environmental health team only this morning that they'd done some recent noise monitoring at the residential properties, and the noise levels now are controlled and within the parameters that it doesn't warrant any further action from them. There's no statutory nuisance. What your grant of planning permission doesn't do, if you're minded to do that, is if the noise becomes a statutory nuisance, we've still got that as a backup as well. But I just wanted to update you on that position from environmental health this morning. Thank you, Chair.
So the noise on heavy plant being moved from one side to another?
We were out on the site, and it's vehicles in the main going back to and from the sites where the staff are coming back to the compound for welfare purposes to have their breaks. So there is like a small generator on there, but that's generating electricity for the lights in the cabins and the fridges for when they're having cold drinks. They are subject to a restriction, and at 6 p.m. everything flicks off. So everything kind of stops overnight, so there isn't that humming overnight. And again, that's subject to a condition that's very enforceable. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just a comment, really. In fact, a few comments. The fact that there was no consultation, I think, is very, very unfortunate. And I thank Councillor Sutton for the information he's given us tonight. I note on the notes there, on site description 1.1.2, the applicant, the reason for this was to service, it says mandatory service. The fact that it's mandatory and there was no warning or no notice given to residents at all, I think is pretty despicable. And I hope that Severn Trent and we all learn from this. And I do sympathise 110% with the residents there. And I feel very, very strongly about it. And I'd like to make that comment. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that comment. There's no need for officers to comment on that, is there? Any more speakers? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I was staggered yesterday when I eventually found the compound, because I thought that was it. Where we were was the construction site, and it was pointed out to us. The site's over there. There's a big crane. We could see a crane. It was a good mile away. And I thought, this is odd. No one's mentioned county planning yet. They're the ones who passed this up. Well, whatever. You say they got permitted development, but why was there a planning application passed by county? That's excuse me, one question. And they seem to have got away scot-free with this. They're nowhere to be seen, and it's landed in our lap. So I mean, we had. I'm going to mention it because we've got a golf course in Essington still being built about 12 years after county planning gave them permission, and they keep extending it. So I do come from a point of view where I don't trust them. But anyway, surely when that planning application went into county, the compound should have been on some drawings and surely should have been alongside the construction site. Or am I expecting things to be normal? Because if where the compound is had been on the drawings, it wouldn't have got passed, would it? If it's a mile away.
Let Ellen clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair. We've got to try and remember the jurisdictions here, because you're right, county have approved the waste element to it. So at the main site where we saw the crane that we could see in the distance, that doesn't fall under the jurisdiction in terms of that consenting process of the district. The consenting process that you've got in front of you today is for the compound, and that only needs consent because it doesn't benefit from permitted development because it's in a different location. So the compound wouldn't necessarily need to have appeared on the county plans because it wasn't part of the same proposal and it's not under the same jurisdiction. you're absolutely right. In an ideal world, it would be all encompassing and you would look at the whole thing holistically. But because of the consenting process being different between county and district, that's not the way it's played out. But I suspect if the compound had have been nearer to the actual sewage works itself, there would have been no application to any party because it was permitted development. If that clarifies the point.
Well, it does. So it could have been 5 miles away then.
That's an observation, councillor.
Well, it may as well. But the other observation is I think I counted at least 20 vehicle movements while we were on site yesterday. We talked about sustainability. You know, it's a mile away, like people said. It's ludicrous, and you know, but it strikes me we can't actually vote against it, which is, I don't know, it's like having your hands tied behind your back. I feel so sorry for the local residents who've had, I think from what we were told yesterday, what's happened is the worst it could possibly be, and it will only get better. But you have to keep your eyes on them, and if they don't adhere to the conditions, you need to go to enforcement at district council. Don't bother going to county.
Thank you, councillor Steele. Are there any more speakers? No? Oh, you want to come back? Helen?
Yeah, just to say, obviously, I completely appreciate where you're coming from, councillor Steele, and I was on the visit yesterday with you, so I think there have been some lessons learned. But the obviously the need to be able to upgrade the main sewerage works is something that we need to consider here as well. The location isn't ideal. It's the way that it's panned out in terms of the way that the movements work. And it's a temporary consent, and that the land will be returned back to its original form once the upgrade works have been provided, and that wider provision of the upgrade works, as Councillor Sutton alluded to, you know, it is something that's necessary as a statutory undertaker. I just wanted to flag that point. Thank you, Chair.
Go on.
At least this temporary is only 2 years, not like 50 years, like a lot of the recent applications we've heard.
Thank you. Right. I think that Councillor Wendy Sutton made a lot of really good points. Let's hope Severn Trent are listening now. We did discuss this yesterday on the site. Unfortunately, there are different site managers for each project. So let's hope that the message gets back to Severn Trent that you need good consultation when you're dealing with the public. Nevertheless, what Ellen has said, we're here to consider this application on its merits tonight. But there's all these mistakes in the past that we're not too pleased about. Well, members aren't. So I'll hand back to Councillor Sutton to wind up, please. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Chair. The debate has been interesting, and I'm pleased that everybody has been able to take part in this evening. What Helen has alluded to is something that, because of the location or the proximity of the compound, it was out of the reach of permitted development rights, and therefore we became involved and aware as a district council. In the future, it may not be the case. It may be that you yourselves will have Severn Trent Waterworks, and I'll put that separate, waterworks in your area that actually will only need permitted development rights, and as such won't need to come within the district's jurisdiction. And that is a big concern from the point of view of the works that we've had to undergo to get to the point where this is before the committee as a district, that won't necessarily be there for Severn Trent Works in the future, because they will be in close proximity and will have those huge statutory rights, and they have a lot more statutory rights as a utility than they do under any other legislation, to have permitted development rights. And that might be a huge difficulty for your residents in the future. I go back to something Councillor Steele said. The gentleman this evening, Mr Hayward, who's represented as one of the many residents that have spoken to me, obviously mostly impacted by, because they are the close proximity to the compound. Yes, from our point of view, if any of the conditions, if this is likely to be approved, and it is a difficult one, as Councillor Steele says, it's mandatory, it's something that we almost feel like our hands are tied behind our back to approve, because there is no other location closer to this site that is available, according to Severn Trent. We have no choice, I think, but to really say all of the conditions need to be really adhered to by Severn Trent. There is one question, if I may, Chair, and it's something actually Mr Hayward mentioned, and it was around the soil analysis. Before the site is put back to its original site, should this be approved, will there be some condition, or could we put some condition in relation to ensuring that the site or the soil analysis is completed and we're not putting poison back into the ground? The reason I ask is when they initially started, there was several reports from different residents that there was concrete being broken up on site, and that's why there was so much dust.
Yeah, through you, Chair. It's difficult to control through the planning application, mainly because it's covered by other legislation, and we've talked a lot in here about not duplicating other legislation. If you're moving aggregates or whatever it might be from one place to another, it's a permitting process. So they know what it is when you start, and you know what it is when you finish. So I think we would be making duplicate decisions here, whether the legislation, but if it gives members any comfort, there is legislation in place that covers that. Thank you, Chair.
Any more speakers? No? Therefore, I'm going to put to the committee the recommendation is for approval. All those in favour of approval, please show. Yeah, it's unanimous, members, so the application is approved. Councillor Steele.
Could you put in brackets reluctantly behind after my name, please?
That's noted. Thank you. Right, so that's the end of the determination. Just turning over. There's no updates, is there? There's no update report. So therefore, members, I'm closing the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you. Good night.